He argues that, like, woke ideology thrives on this narrative of oppression. They frame themselves as victims, he says, and then use guilt and shame to control others and silence dissent.
His language gets pretty strong here. He even uses the term mental retardation.
Yeah, his choice of words is definitely provocative and potentially offensive. It's important to remember that using such language can be dehumanizing, and it's crucial to be mindful of the impact our words can have.
So, he almost seems to believe that this victimhood mentality is a way for them to climb the social ladder, to gain power and influence.
Yeah, but he's suggesting that by claiming victim status, woke activists gain a sense of moral authority, which they then use to control the narrative and shut down opposing viewpoints.
And then, of course, there's his comparison of woke ideology to narcissism.
Right.
Specifically covert narcissism.
Right. Covert narcissism.
Now, remind me, what is covert narcissism again?
So covert narcissists often present as quiet and unassuming, but underneath that facade is this deep need for admiration and a lack of empathy for others. And the video creator suggests that this personality type is drawn to social activism as a way to gain attention and manipulate others.
So to sum it up, he's basically arguing that woke activists are driven by a combination of mental instability, a need for attention, and a desire for power.
That's a very simplified version of his argument, and it's important to note that he's presenting a very specific and controversial perspective.
But what about the genuine social justice issues that many of these movements are fighting for? Are we just supposed to dismiss those?
That's a good question. It's crucial to differentiate between the motivations of individual activists and the validity of the causes they support. Just because someone might be driven by selfish motives doesn't automatically invalidate the issue they're fighting for.
He seems to suggest, though, that all woke activism is inherently manipulative and driven by personal gain.
Yes, and his argument is definitely sweeping and lacks nuance. It's important to remember that social movements are complex. Reducing them to a single explanation like mental illness is overly simplistic.
He also talks about this idea of the woke mask slipping.
Okay.
Those moments when the facade of tolerance and empathy crumbles, and you see anger and aggression bubbling to the surface.
And it's important to acknowledge that this does happen. We've all seen examples of people behaving badly in the name of social justice. But it's crucial to remember that individuals don't represent entire movements. We can't paint everyone with the same brush just because a few people behave poorly.
Right, it would be like saying all Christians are hypocrites.
Yeah.
Because some people who call themselves Christians do terrible things.
Exactly. It's about nuance and critical thinking. We have to be able to separate the actions of individuals from the ideologies they claim to represent.
So after diving deep into this video, what are your final thoughts? Do you think wokeness is truly a form of mental illness?
That's a tough question. I don't think there's an easy answer. While the video presents some interesting arguments and raises valid concerns about the potential for manipulation and power dynamics within social movements, I think it's a huge oversimplification to label an entire ideology as a mental illness.
So where does that leave us? What should we take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is the importance of critical thinking and open dialogue. We need to be able to engage with diverse perspectives, even those we disagree with, and we have to be willing to question our own assumptions instead of dismissing entire groups of people or resorting to name calling. Let's try to understand the complexities of social movements and the motivations of those involved.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in the emotional intensity of these debates, but it's crucial to step back and think critically. Blindly accepting or rejecting an ideology is never the answer.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about, and hopefully it's encouraged you to engage with these issues in a thoughtful and nuanced way. Ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide how we want to navigate the complexities of our world and contribute to positive social change.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
But there's still more to explore.
Right. In part 3, we'll delve deeper into the implications of this perspective and consider alternative viewpoints. We'll also examine the role of critical thinking in navigating these complex and often emotionally charged issues.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive. And I gotta say, after spending the last 2 parts dissecting this video that claims wokeness is basically a form of mental illness, I'm still processing everything we've uncovered.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about for sure. We've examined some pretty extreme examples, delved into concepts like covert narcissism and the psychology of victimhood. And, we've grappled with this idea that some people might be exploiting social justice movements for personal gain.
One thing that really stuck with me was the video creator's frustration with political correctness.
Oh, yeah.
He seems to think it's like the silencing mechanism that prevents open discussion and honest debate.
That's a really interesting point, and it's something that a lot of people are talking about these days. I mean, the intent of political correctness is often to promote inclusivity and respect, but it can definitely be taken too far. Sometimes it does seem like people are afraid to express their true opinions for fear of being labeled as intolerant or bigoted.
Yeah, he even argues that this fear of offending others has allowed woke ideology to spread unchecked,
Yeah.
becoming like a form of oppression in itself. He's basically saying it's backfired.
Right, and this kind of ties back into his argument about power dynamics. He sees woke activists as using political correctness to control the narrative, silence dissent, and ultimately gain power.
It almost sounds like he's describing a society where people are constantly walking on eggshells,
Yeah.
terrified of saying the wrong thing.
It's a pretty bleak picture for sure, but it does raise some valid concerns. I mean, if we're so focused on being politically correct, are we actually stifling important conversations that need to happen? Are we shutting down dissenting viewpoints just because they make us uncomfortable?
He also keeps coming back to this idea of the woke mask slipping, those moments when they're the facade of tolerance and empathy crumbles. And you see like anger and aggression bubbling to the surface.
And it's important to acknowledge that this does happen. We've all some examples of people behaving badly in the name of social justice, but we have to remember that individuals don't represent entire movements, right? We can't paint everyone with the same brush just because a few people behave poorly.
Yeah, it's like saying that all Christians are hypocrites because some people who call themselves Christians do terrible things.
Exactly. It's about nuance and critical thinking. We have to be able to separate the actions of individuals from the ideologies they claim to represent.
So, after diving deep into this video, what are your kind of like final thoughts here? Do you buy into this idea that wokeness is truly a form of mental illness?
It's a really tough question. I don't think there's a simple yes or no answer. I mean, the video definitely presents some interesting arguments, and it raises some valid concerns about the potential for manipulation and power dynamics within social movements. But I think it's a huge oversimplification to label an entire ideology as a mental illness.
So what are we left with then? What should we take away from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway for me is the importance of critical thinking and open dialogue. We need to be able to engage with diverse perspectives, even those we disagree with. And we have to be willing to question our own assumptions. Instead of dismissing entire groups of people or resorting to name-calling, let's try to understand the complexities of social movements and the motivations of those involved.
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in the emotional intensity of these debates. But it's crucial to step back and think critically. Blindly accepting or rejecting an ideology is never the answer.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about, and hopefully it's encouraged you to engage with these issues in a thoughtful and nuanced way. Ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide how we want to navigate the complexities of our world and contribute to positive social change.
Well said. We're going to be talking about DEI.
Okay.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Big topic.
It is a big topic, and we're going to be looking at a YouTube video
Right.
called The Myth of Equity and Equality, The Lies of DEI.
Catchy title.
It is catchy, and it really kind of throws down the gauntlet right from the start.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're going to be exploring in this deep dive.
Sounds good.
So, kind of the central question here is, is DEI a myth? Like, how could it be built on lies?
Right.
What are they even talking about in this video?
Yeah.
So maybe let's just start with some definitions.
Sure.
And what is this video even saying about equity and equality? How are these two terms even being used?
So right away, the video kind of jumps into this comparison of equality versus equity.
Okay.
And they use this analogy of shoes.
Okay.
So they're saying that, equality is like giving everyone the same size shoes.
Okay. Everyone gets the same size shoes. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So I guess like regardless of, what size foot you actually have.
Exactly.
Everyone's just getting, a size 9 or whatever.
Or everyone gets the same resources, the same opportunities.
So if you have really small feet,
yeah,
those shoes are going to be way too big.
exactly.
And if you have big feet,
You're going to be pretty uncomfortable.
you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see already how there's some problems with this.
Right.
This idea of just, blanket equality. Same thing for everybody.
And the video really uses that to kind of lead into this idea of equity.
Okay, so what is equity then?
So equity in this analogy is like giving everyone shoes that actually fit.
Okay.
So recognizing that not everyone starts at the same place.
Right.
And providing, different levels of support or resources to make sure that everyone can actually
Okay, so I can already see how this is going to get controversial. Because if equity is about, giving people different things based on their needs, how do you do that and still be fair?
Right. And that's exactly the kind of the argument that the video is making.
Okay.
They're saying that by striving for equity, you're actually creating an inherent imbalance.
Okay.
And they go so far as to say that, any system that doesn't treat everyone equally is dishonest.
Wow. Okay, so they're really framing this
this
idea of equity as a lie?
Exactly.
Okay. I can see how some people would find that argument really appealing.
Yeah.
Especially if you feel like you've been, working hard.
Mm-hmm.
and playing by the rules, and you see other people getting, extra help or extra benefits.
Right. And I think that's where this video really taps into a sense of, some people might feel like they're being disadvantaged by systems that are designed to help others.
Right. Like, is it really fair to hold some people to a different standard than others?
Right.
Even if it's, with the goal of trying to level the playing field. So I guess the question then is, are they right?
Yeah.
Is DEI actually harmful? Is it actually, creating more problems than it's solving?
Yeah. It's a really tough question.
So what do you think?
Well, I think, it's important to acknowledge that DEI initiatives often come from a good place.
Okay.
They are trying to address real historical inequalities.
Mm-hmm.
But the video raises some valid points about, whether those efforts are actually effective or fair.
Okay. So the video is acknowledging
Yes,
that these historical inequalities exist.
they do.
But then it's also saying that,
It's saying that by focusing so much on the past,
okay,
that we're maybe creating new problems in the present.
and it's almost like we're trying to rewrite history.
Right.
And I guess the argument there is that
Yeah.
you can't change the past.
You can't. And they're arguing that by focusing on it so much that we're actually creating more division.
Right. And maybe even punishing certain groups
They-
for things that happened in the past that they had nothing to do with.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, are we holding the current generation accountable for the sins of their fathers?
Right. It's a very, it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, and it's a really complex issue.
It is.
So, I mean, it sounds like this video is really advocating for this idea of just, individual merit and equal opportunity.
Yeah, they seem to be pushing for a more individualistic approach, focusing on personal responsibility and kind of working within the existing structures.
So less about like overhauling the whole system
Exactly.
and more about just, giving everyone an equal chance
Right.
to succeed within that system.
Yeah, and I think that's a perspective that resonates with a lot of people.
It does. Yeah.
Especially those who feel like they've been unfairly disadvantaged by these DEI initiatives.
Right. So it's kind of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Work hard and you can achieve anything. Which, that's a very American ideal.
It is a very American ideal.
But it also kind of ignores the reality that,
That not everyone starts from the same place.
yeah,
And that some people face systemic barriers.
right, that make it much harder for them to succeed.
Exactly.
So it's like we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
It feels that way.
We're trying to address historical inequalities.
Yeah.
But in doing so, are we creating new inequalities?
Right. Are we just swinging the pendulum in the other direction?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this topic so difficult to talk about.
It is.
Because there are valid arguments on both sides.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard to find that middle ground.
It is. It's a very nuanced conversation.
It is. So I guess the question is, what do we do?
Right.
How do we move forward in a way that is fair and equitable for everyone?
Yeah. I don't think there's an easy answer to that.
No.
But I think this video does a good job of kind of highlighting the challenges.
Yeah, it definitely makes us think
Yeah.
about these issues in a new way.
Yeah.
And I think that's really valuable.
I agree.
So, maybe the takeaway here is not that we need to completely abandon DEI,
Right.
but that we need to be more thoughtful
More nuance.
and more intentional about how we implement it.
Exactly.
We need to make sure that we're not just, swinging the pendulum
Yeah.
from one extreme to the other,
Right.
but that we're actually creating a system that is fair and just for everyone.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that's a great place to leave it.
I think so too.
So for all of you listening out there, keep thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Keep having those tough conversations.
Absolutely.
And really try to figure out, what does fairness mean to you?
Yeah. What does it look like in your own life?
And how can we create a world where everyone has the opportunity to succeed?
Great question.